Meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody. This time, Jenny, if you could take the roll call.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson? Here. Councilmember Wong? Here. Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Here. Quorum is present. This time, motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is adopted. At this time, we have a couple presentations. And the first one is, we're going to recognize our police chief. Tom, if you want to come up to the podium here. And come on, you've had, what, 30-some years of this, and... Yeah, right. Gives me great pleasure to, again, we talked the other day, and for you to be honored tonight for all your years of service. On behalf of I'll read this here, on behalf of the City of North St. Paul and North St. Paul Police Department, we'd like to recognize 3901 Chief Thomas Loth for 32 years and 32 days of loyal service in law enforcement. His dedication to the North St. Paul Police Department and the City of North St. Paul is greatly appreciated. Chief, you have led the North St. Paul Police Department to what it is today, building a strong relationship with the community while rising to every occasion with the utmost professionalism. The staff of the North St. Paul Police Department is proud to have been under your direction and thanks you for your commitment to the department and community. Now going into the next chapter of your life, may God's blessings be upon you as you follow in his way. And may you find joy and peace as he inspires you every day. Chief Loth, Beth wishes in all your future endeavors, happy retirement, 3901. Well, thank you, Mary. Yeah, we kind of grew up in the same neighborhood together, and we're close to the same age, kind of know the same people. But I want to really thank you for all your years of service. It went fast, and now you're at the retirement side, and we had a good discussion the other day of what you plan on doing and what works. But I also like to give you this plaque, and that is Chief of Police Thomas A. Loth. The mayor, city council, and city manager wish to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to you on your retirement from the North St. Paul Police Department. You provided outstanding, loyal, and dedicated service to our entire community for over 32 years and 32 days. We extend our best wishes for a long, happy, and healthy retirement. Thank you for a job well done, May 31st, 2021. So, Tom, again, I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And I know you'd love to say a couple words about all the good things that you've done and we've
heard enough
done.
from me over the years, somebody say, hey, that's enough. I'd just like to say a couple things. It's been great to be part of the North St. Paul family. It really has. I mean, back when I started here, as I said, everything's changed. There's no longer are there any of the police officers I started with. City council's all changed, police civil service has changed, and I guess that's some of the trick to longevity there is out surviving everybody, on that sort of thing. So it just is. It's just there's been so many good relationships with all the departments throughout, the city and growing up and stuff, and growing with the city and getting there and having the belief of the then councils and other people to have this opportunity and go forward. There's been consternation, a lot of change, and there always is in anything over these years and stuff. And it's really great to finally get to that end of it and look back and say, yeah, wow, we did accomplish a lot, but very excited too for what's coming forward and stuff too, because, you know, it's time for new, it's time for change, and it's time for somebody else to lead it and everything like that, and to take it forward, to take it to the next step, which I believe for North St. Paul is going to be very good and very great. So, again, I just want to thank you all. It's been a great career. It's been a great life. I've raised 5 children, many grandchildren, and, you know, I couldn't ask for anything more, so thank you.
So what is your best story in North St. Paul as a police officer?
We can't really disclose those.
Not about me, but,
I want to get out of here with everybody liking me, okay? So we'll leave those ones to the rest.
but policing has changed in the last 32 years. I mean,
tremendously.
you've seen it from what it was 32 years ago as a patrol officer and what it is today, and it's completely different. And maybe just give us your little insight, help the guys that are, you know, moving up, what it's gonna look like for them 32 years from now.
Who would ever thought to get here? I mean, we started out with the old best police car ever made, the Chevrolet Caprice Classic. It really was. What a ride that was, with the old Jetsonic light bars that whistled when you went down the road, when you got up in speed a little bit. So that was always fun to hear, because you knew when one of the guys was going after somebody else on Old 36. Remember that? Because you'd hear that whistling even before the sirens or anything else like that. So those things were fun. The radios were those old radios, 8 channels, and you just counted them off doing it like that, you know, and stuff. And it's not the digital, everything there is today. And, you know, there was a specific thing for statewide and everything on there. It's just a totally different world. Computers, there weren't any in the squads, you know. I mean, it was pretty open, and we thought they were packed then. So what it's gotten to be is really something else. And even the radios, they were quite heavy that you wore at the time and stuff like that with it. The old PR-24s and stuff like that pretty much nobody uses anymore or anything like that, those types of things. And just as it just evolved going forward to everything, and eventually getting the MDTs, which everybody called the dumb terminal and everything, and it just, you know, and eventually going to digital radios when I was a sergeant shortly before we became chief, because I remember when we did that whole thing and getting on that, and that was just, wow, you know, what an upgrade that was. And just as squads have gotten better and better over the time, and they've packed more into them, and then the challenge of trying to keep them charged and not being dead, just because you're putting more and more demand on them. So it's you know, and now we have hybrids. And aren't those a treat to drive? I mean, that's, wow. And, you know, I did get to drive one just for a little bit, just to do it because I wanted to say I had and stuff, and they're quiet, and they're quick too, right out of the hole. It's just amazing and stuff. And so all that going forward with these guys who, many of them grew up with the things and stuff like that, and they're going to, that technology that I've seen change from nothing to where it is at today is only going to explode on you more, you know, so that's, it just, you know, keeps on doubling and stuff in shorter amount of time, and so it's really exciting to where that's going to be, you know, in the future and stuff like that. And just, if I can say it too,
You can say whatever you want.
it's been a lot of fun with all the officers, especially, you know, always over all the years, but the group we have now is just really neat, cool bunch of people and stuff, young men and ladies and stuff. And unfortunately, I was looking back at some of the things from hiring them and stuff and remembering, I said, a lot, not you guys, but a lot of them weren't even around when I became a police officer. So that's another reason saying it. Tom, you've been here long enough. And so before I, you know, wear out my welcome here, I'd just like to say thank you all again and stuff like that. You've got a tremendous crew of officers going forward, and it'll be wonderful. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce you to our new acting chief, which is Ray Rosales. Ray, if you want to come up and maybe say a few words and maybe introduce the new sergeant also.
Absolutely.
You'll get your first role as chief.
All right, great. Don't let that gray beard fool you, because that guy would kick my butt in a push-up challenge. So he's pretty fit. I'm Ray Rosales. Been here since 2011.
If you can kind of stay by the mic if
Oh,
possible.
yeah. Since
Put it down.
There you go. Even lower. Is that good? All right. So I started here at North St. Paul back in 2011 as a reserve officer, which is a volunteer service here. And during my 2-year program at Inver Hills, I worked under Chief Loth. And shortly after graduating with my 2-year, got offered a job position here as a patrol officer. And through that time, as a patrol officer, I got the opportunity to work in various positions, such as Ramsey County Traffic Safety Initiative as a coordinator for our department, moved up to investigations, field training officer. Then I got the opportunity to become the field training officer coordinator of the program with Sergeant Fredericks. And worked in investigations for just over a year, got promoted to sergeant, and lo and behold, I think it was just a few weeks, got offered the acting chief position. So it's been a great ride here at North St. Paul. It's been awesome working under Chief Loth's direction. My first day on the job, going into his office, shaking his hand, and he said he can't wait to see me grow as an officer. I wish he was talking more about my height, but professional career, he couldn't wait to see me grow, and I mentioned to him on his last day there, look at us now. So here we are, and it's surreal sitting in his chair. It'll always be his chair in my eyes, and Chief Loth, thank you for everything you've taught me. It's been a privilege working under your direction, and I'm grateful for the knowledge you've given me moving forward. So I look forward to taking on this task and the responsibilities. So with that, as acting sergeant, Colin Betts has been promoted. I'll let him talk away.
I don't have a good speech as that. I'm acting sergeant as of right now, kind of taking over Raymond's position. I got hired with the department back in 2012, just like Ray. Started out as a reserve, and then shortly became a FTO on the reserve unit. And as that became, there was a position for a police officer, so I got hired back in 2014. Started there as a police officer patrol, and then slowly worked my way into taking over Ray's position as TZD coordinator. As I wanted to take on more, became an FTO, so I also do a lot of field training. That's with our new hires, so we went and did that. After that, I wanted to do something a little bit more tactical, so I joined the SWAT team for East Metro SWAT, which is now Ramsey County SWAT. So I did that for about 2 years. And as of right now, I'm just taking on the acting role. So that's what I have, and that's kind of where I come from. And I want to thank Chief for everything that you've taught me quite a lot. I didn't think I would stand a chance in law enforcement, so I thank Chief for giving me the opportunity to become who I am today, and a lot of it is because of what he's taught me. So
Good.
that's all I have.
Thank you very much. And we've heard a lot of good things about both of you. But Ray, I want you to know that do not have your office like Tom had it, because he had way too much paperwork in that office.
Down there, because it's a little bit cleaner.
Okay.
It's progressively accumulating.
Well, thank you all, and again, congratulations to all three of you, and Tom, in your retirement, and as you ride off into the sunset, come back and visit us. So, thank you.
Mayor, if I could, again, I just want to congratulate Tom for all the work over all the years. Has been outstanding, and relationships, obviously, through different departments, myself with him and fire and everything through all the years. But been a pleasure, Tom. Thank you very much. And the people that we have, stepping up today, with Ray stepping up for the acting chief and Colin as sergeant position, I think it's just a testament to our officers on the department willing to do what needs to be done, and the growth and through their whole career, and what comes out of our department here within North St. Paul. We've had many officers over the years that have been here, have retired from here. We've had officers that started here and went to other other career departments. And North St. Paul seemingly has always been a very, very strong effort for that, whether it's police or fire. We've had a lot of people go on to other larger career departments. So I think it's just again, a testament to our programs that we offer here and the people that we have here. So thank you to all.
You don't have to stay for the meeting if you don't want. It's just something that, we'd love to have you stay, but. Tom, do you want your box? Thank you. All right, we have the consent agenda. That's the May 18th, 2021 workshop minutes, the May 18th, 2021 regular meeting minutes, and the journal claims of $539,019.84. Is there a motion to, or is there, anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda? Councilmember Thurston?
Item C.
Item C, we'll move that down to item J. So we'll have the two motion for the first two items. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cole,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting open to the public. We like to extend people to come up and talk to the council, but we try to limit it in a 3-minute interval. And I've got two people here. First one is RT. Welcome, RT.
Sorry, I'm going to make this really brief today. We have practice tonight and I got to get back. But I was able to listen to the closed session stuff, which is great. Obviously incorporated a lot of those thoughts and ideas into our proposal back to you guys regarding the potential lease of the building. But there were a couple items that I did want to clear and put some things on the record, if I may, if I can submit these. So that they are public record. There were 2 items that came up that we were a little concerned about regarding kind of the not payment of rent. And I wanted to just put into the record all of our communications with the city regarding our rent. I'm gonna give those to you guys.
Okay.
And then also regarding the unsigned lease, I have some communications about that as well, that we went back and forth with the city and just didn't hear back at the end, regarding the kind of proposal that we had regarding that lease. So I just wanted these things to be in the public record, because I know it was talked about and that meeting is now public. So I just wanted these communications to also be in there so they can hear and see how we did in fact communicate with the council or the city manager or
Okay,
whoever
and we'll get those.
regarding these items.
Yep.
So I appreciate that.
Perfect.
It's just to kind of make sure everybody is open and transparent and that everybody has that information. So people aren't like, Kokoro's not doing what they're supposed to do. It's like, no, here's all the information that we have. So,
Got it.
but I appreciate the opportunity to listen to that stuff. And it was good to hear from you guys. And that's what we've kind of been asking for all along. Like, hey, let's sit down and we want to hear what you guys want from that space. And we were able to, like I said, incorporate some of that back in to our proposal back to you guys. We look forward to hearing from you again. We know I talked to Attorney Maddock, and he said it could be a little while. That's totally fine. We're not worried about it. Our next rent check is already in there, but I couldn't wait to do it because I'll be out of town. We have a national tournament here starting in about a week and a half. So
Where are you going?
we'll be in Florida.
Perfect.
So I'll be down in Florida for about 2 weeks, so I won't be back until July. And I'd have to look at the next council meeting when it is in July. And I just wanted to get this stuff in so that it was a public record. So
Got it.
appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the stuff you did send to us and the requests that we had. We were able to utilize that in a really good way, we thought. So thank you very much.
Good luck in Florida.
Yeah. Is that for Junior Olympics?
It is, it is. The national championships are down there in Orlando, and it should be fun. Things are loosening up a little bit. More spectators are going to be allowed. They're going to have unlimited spectators, but everybody's going to mask in the stands, and hopefully they'll work on that a little bit. But so it looks like it'll be a pretty normal event. So we look forward to it. So thanks for
Well, that's-
asking. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
John Schmall. Welcome, John.
Mayor, council, I'm wondering if, does the city have a decibel level on noise that you would enforce?
So Friday Night Car Show, motorcycles coming in, complaints on car noise. We do have it in place, but it's hard for the police to
How about
enforce
Casey
it.
Park?
It's a noise ordinance. It should be anywhere in the city.
So what does a citizen incur in trying to get somebody involved in cutting the noise down?
Call the police.
Lucky them for that.
That's who enforces it.
Okay, well, I was home this weekend, and I could have told you, if you wanted to ask me, that you were going to have trouble at Casey in a mess just based on the noise level. Now, who has the amp? Is that brought in by the individual?
It's complained by the citizens, so
No,
you would
the
make,
amp itself. Do we provide the amp, or does the individual?
individuals.
rent
We don't have an amplifier there.
Okay, well, somebody ought to be telling these people when they rent the place that we have a noise ordinance. We got signs on McKnight saying noise ordinance enforced. Maybe a sign at Casey, a couple of them that says noise ordinance
I'm
enforced.
assuming it could be we should have it in the contract. If we don't have it, we should probably put that in there.
Well, and
It's
not-
always got to be enforced.
John, please, I just want to make a comment. As I mentioned in the workshop, this is something that we need to really take a comprehensive look at because, the things I mentioned in the workshop and what John is mentioning right now, the problem is just escalating, and we need to get it in control.
Yep.
So, but there was no doubt that the statement that the city manager made about a problem was going to happen based on just what was going on. I couldn't see it. I didn't know who was there. There's no way through the trees that I can see it. But the noise level was atrocious. And those poor people that have houses right by the parking lot, it's surprising they don't say something. Because I'm now a block away and it's boom, 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 and the windows are rattling. So would appreciate it if somebody informs these individuals that we do have a noise ordinance. The other thing is that I also had the opportunity to listen to the double secret probation closed meeting minutes. I could only get through 2 of the 4 before I got bored. But anyway, the first one was dealing with that the community center can no longer be left and patched, and that there is a need to repair it. So I was wondering when this is going to be an agenda item to repair the roof and the rooftop units and whatnot, because according to the city manager, in meeting number 1 on 2/2/21, that it's in bad shape and it cannot be left to be patched anymore. Something has to be done with it. And I was just curious as to when that's going to come up.
Well, I can't give you a specific date. I don't,
Well, I can tell you, as we know, one of the things that we've looked at and have applied for is we've submitted the bonding request for the potential complete revamping and remodeling of the center. And so the outcome of that will be one of the guiding pieces because that would provide a complete rehab of the building, both inside and out. If that isn't successful, yes, we're going to have to come up with our own plans to do something. But the patchwork to the building has been done as recent as this spring to put that in place. But to not do things without the unknowing of what the outcome of the building is going to be long-term, and so we're not doing it twice.
Okay, well, I just found it interesting that you said we're in trouble, patches aren't going to work anymore. So anyway, I always try to keep our assets in good shape.
Correct.
Thanks.
thank you.
Just quick comment on his noise ordinance comments. So I know this has been a topic in the past, like Mayor alluded to about the car show, and the issue that we've had with that is that, you know, if a motorcycle or a loud car drives by, the time frame from someone calling to the police, they're gone. And the rule is it needs to be a sustained decibel level, and from my understanding, the police department does have a tool that measures that. So in this case where it's, you know, it's happening at a fixed park facility, and if it's ongoing, I mean, I would imagine anyone could call and complain. I believe they come and they park a certain distance away and they observe and they use their tool, and if it reaches that level, then they proceed with enforcement. And it's essentially, we've got noise complaints, you need to stop or bring it down. And if we come back again, we're gonna shut your event down or your party if it happens at a house or whatever, and then you're gonna be issued a citation. So I believe in that case, it is simply just a phone call to the police department, and if they have the resources, they can deal with it. But, you know, a car driving by is a loud motorcycle, it's a little harder to enforce. But these park facilities or homeowners that have parties at their home and there's noise issues, I believe we can have enforcement follow up on and deal with.
And it's been the issue that, you know, on a noise ordinance or a noise complaint is that the officers will go there, they'll check in, they'll tell them to turn it down, do whatever. If it, just as you commented, if it continues to go back, to shut it down, because the problems that we've had over the years with the noise decibel meters and things like that, it becomes you know, if it does go to court, what's been the certification, what's been the calibration of the device and all that stuff, and it's been a nightmare to try to utilize equipment like that to end up with a court process. So it's been much easier, much more effective to actually visit and say, hey, we've got complaints, turn it down, keep it in reason, and if that doesn't happen, to ask it to be shut down
We've had
completely.
problems with Newman's, we've had
Right.
A&J during, you know, the car show. It's just something that, yeah, it's hard to enforce, you know, but, you know, Casey Lake, we should be able to go there and, you know, if it's a loud party, shut them down.
And I certainly don't want to, we talked about this last year, and we talked about it, I think, the year before, and we need to definitely have things in place this year for the fireworks. You know, last July was terrible event with that, with the mess that we had down there, and we've seen some of that this weekend in the parking lot, just on a regular picnic. So to control those things, you know, and whether it means regular routine courtesy visits from the police department into there, but it's a meeting we need to have soon and put together some procedures in place to manage this.
All right, is there anybody on Zoom for public input? No hands raised, okay. So at this time, we have no public hearings, city business and action items and recommendations. Turn over to City Manager Dudek. We got to follow this new layout.
First item we have, Mayor, we have several of these this evening, and this is the issuance of our liquor license renewals. And the first one is a liquor license renewal for 3-2 on sale liquor license. And we have several of these, so if you want to, we'll go through them individually. But the first one is a liquor license renewal for 3-2 on sale liquor license.
So we have, the first one is 3-2, and that's separate from the other one. So the motion is for resolution approving the 3.2 on-sale liquor license renewals effective July 1st through June 30th of 2022. Is there any questions for city manager or city attorney? Not, all those in,
I have a question. It's overreaching question to all of these tonight. Are any of these that we're about to vote on tonight, any of these locations been nuisance locations Have we had multiple police calls? Have we had,
No, we have
I didn't
not.
think we had, but I wanted to
Yep.
ask.
Yeah, no, none of these.
Does that typically go on the record when we see?
Oh,
this?
yeah, if there's issues that have been going on, that's something would be definitely reviewed at licensing time and things like that. But thankfully, that is something that we do not have. And, you know, we also do the underage checks that are going on there with our tobacco and alcohol and things like that. So we've got that information, but these have all been very good long-term businesses.
Is there a motion for the 3-2?
Just a follow-up comment. If there ever becomes an issue, we can address it. We don't have to wait for the renewal. So if
Correct.
there's an ongoing issue, we can always put that on the agenda and discuss it. And if revocation is, or suspension is, I mean, it's happened.
Could be at any time.
We've just never had, to my knowledge, ever had any issues like that, but.
Is there a standard like protocol or procedure and, you know, which we would would trigger a revocation or at least a conversation for it?
The police department is where these licenses originate out of, so they're managing and tracking all the issues with that. So that would be a recommendation or something that would come forth out of the police department. And I will say this is the first time that these licenses have been processed and applied for through our new OpenGov system. And I can tell you that the police department has been extremely excited. They've also worked with our attorney's office to streamline a lot of the information in here and putting this together. A lot of the licensing in the past has been information that has been in place for just a number of years. So our working with our city attorney's office and the police department updated this process, and it has gone very well through the online portal.
And I heard from the businesses that they are extremely happy.
Yes.
That was my comment.
All right, is there a motion for the 3-2 license?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. City Manager Dudek.
Your council, the next item is for the liquor license renewal for city off-sale intoxicating liquor licenses. So that is your next one for your consideration.
I'm just looking at it here, and the 3-2 was, do they have to? I'm looking at Pizza Factories on both of them, a 3-2 and a, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I believe they have the, if I remember right, they had the $150, I'd have to go back and look at their application.
That was a wine,
Right.
but that's, so off-sale would be selling liquor that would go off premise.
Let me see if, I don't have the,
City Attorney, I don't know if you,
Yeah, so on sale is consumed on the premises, off sale is exactly that.
yes, and that's,
so Bright Wines, they sell and it goes off, but Pizza Factory doesn't sell.
Pizza Factory doesn't do that, and I'm just trying to see their application back up that's not here, but, yeah, that may be an error, because that is listed for off-sale.
Yeah, if they don't have a pending, there are always concerns about issuing an on sale and an off sale simultaneously.
Correct,
So I would say the motion would just be for the Bright Wines.
exactly.
And check into that, why
I'll look
that's
into that
on
one.
the off-sale for Pizza Factory. I don't think it should be there.
Yep, I think that's an error on the off-sale.
So the motion is for off-sale intoxicating for Bright Wines. Is there a motion for their license? Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? Councilmember Thorson.
Just trying to rack my brain here, and I know there's some of these liquor stores have left, but I know Target, they have an off sale. is that, why are they not on this list?
It's a good question.
I don't know the extent of who applied, to be honest. But to sell, they need a off-sale license. I just don't know when their renewal date is.
Right, and these are all the,
I think Target's the only other one that's off sale.
correct, and these licenses expire June 30th. So I will follow up with both of those from the police department on the Pizza Factory and also Target.
Because there was a Nine Dragons, and that was in the Polar Plaza, but they're no longer there. And then there was a McKnight Liquor that was in the,
Yep.
and they're no longer there either. And I don't believe there is another
Well,
traditional
Charity
drive-up liquor.
did not apply this year. They're not going to be selling down there.
Who's that?
Polar Charity.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
correct.
Polar Charities are
Correct.
normally operating out of, but they get a 3-2 license too, so I just assumed that they weren't on there, but.
But no, Target should definitely be, would be in here, and then also Pizza Factory for the off-sale. So I'll look into
No,
that.
Pizza Factory not,
No, they should not be on the
should
off-sale.
not be on there, right?
So, and then did Target, because that was a relatively new,
Yeah, build out.
I mean, is it just a mistake that, perhaps they weren't understanding that we do our renewals this time of year, effective January, because they're effective July 1st, correct?
Just depends if they got if we sent paperwork for
Yep.
them to.
Everybody would have
renew
been
the
notified of
license.
this new process.
We know
yes.
when their licenses are
Right.
done.
I'll follow up with both of those with the police department.
Councilmember Wong, you were.
Yeah, I had a question in regards to off-sale licensing. So theoretically, if we had like a brewery where people are drinking in-house and then also say they have a growler or something and people, take it off sale, then then it's appropriate to have both or not?
It's a different license.
It's a different
completely
license,
different
but they can
license,
apply for both.
Yeah. There are different licenses for the breweries and the on-site brewing, and take the growler off, and it's a very complicated system, candidly, more than it needs to be.
I concur.
Thank you. Okay.
Too complicated.
And I do think one point of clarification on Target, Councilmember Thorson, I believe they have made an application, but I believe there's a question about the way they had submitted their insurance, so we are looking into that.
Well, okay. Well, I would just hate to see, after
not
all
get
that
it.
build out, and I know there's obviously a lot of people that go there. If it's just some little technical thing, I think we can work with them and not send the police there on July 1st and tell them to shut the door. We don't.
Well, we'll have the next council meeting to be able to act on it yet before their expiration of their license.
So the motion is for the off-sale intoxicating liquor license for Bright Wines, and I think we have the motions. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. And I think the other ones we can do as a group, and that would be for the on-sale.
Correct, the other one is on sale. With basically all of our establishments in the downtown area.
Page 47, looks like.
Yep. I didn't realize Newman's was a speakeasy.
Yeah. Where have you been?
So the motion is for the on-sale intoxicating liquor licenses for Newman's, for Roddy's, for the Polar, for the American Legion, for Sidewinders, and for the Legion.
VFW.
I'm sorry, VFW.
I'll make
Motion by Councilmember Peterson,
Second?
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries.
And again, I'll follow up on those couple, and it sounds like with our city attorney also on that, but to make sure that Target, where they're at, and the correction with Pizza Factory.
Okay.
Next item we have, Your Honor, is the shoreline setback variance for 2612 Swan Avenue. And we've got Eric Weber with WSB with us this evening to present this. I think Eric is on Zoom.
Welcome, Eric, if you're out there.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Eric Swaber. Looks like I do not have the ability to share my presentation on the screen, but I will run through it verbally. So the request is for a shoreland variance to construct a screen porch on an existing deck. The property is located at 2612 Swan Avenue East. The existing condition is that the existing setback for this property is 75 feet from the ordinary high wire level mark. They are requesting a variance to make a new setback of 57 feet to construct a porch over the existing deck. The variance review requires 5 evaluations. The first is the variance in harmony and consistent with the general purposes and intent of the comprehensive plan and its chapter? This is property guided for low density residential. The proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The second standard is the variance will not adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the city. The screen porch will not affect health, safety.
Lost him.
But no, I got promoted as a panelist, so now I can share my screen.
Eric, we lost you for a little bit there, so.
Sorry, I'll go back to the beginning and just be quick.
Sure.
So again, this is 2612 Swan Avenue East. The request is for an ordinary high water level mark setback variance. There is an existing deck on the site that is the applicant is proposing to enclose into a screen porch. The existing setback requirement is 75 feet. And they are requesting a new setback through this variance of 57 feet to enclose the porch. There are 5 standards required for variance. First is that it's consistent with comprehensive plan. Single family house with a porch is consistent with the low density residential land use designation. Second is the variance will not adversely affect the health, safety, or general welfare of the city. The screen porch will not impact those factors. The third is the one we had the most discussion about with the Planning Commission, and it is that the variance is necessary due to special circumstances applying to this structure or land in question, and does not generally apply to other land or structures in the district or in the vicinity in which the land is located. So in the shoreland ordinance, there are 2 standards for setbacks. First being 75 feet, and the second is or the average of 2 homes that are adjacent to the subject property. The average setback for the 2 homes adjacent to this property is 87.5 feet, so 75 feet would apply. But looking at properties as you look to the southwest, you can see that those properties get a lot closer to the shoreline. So if this was the property at 2592 Swan Avenue, the average between the 2 houses would be 45 feet, and that would be the setback for that property. So the variance of 57 feet is unique to this property. The 4th standard is that this is the minimum variance necessary to alleviate the practical difficulty. The deck exists today. They did reconstruct it with new footings to make sure that it would withstand the new roof. That when they did that, they hit a rock and actually needed to move the footings 1 foot to avoid those rocks. Therefore, this 57-foot variance request is the minimum necessary. And then finally, there's a set of standards about whether it meets the practical difficulties test. First, that the property owner proposes the use that is a reasonable manner. Second, that the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property. Third is the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Fourth, economic conditions alone do not constitute practical difficulties. And 5, the variance is consistent with the officially adopted city plans and overlays. So enclosing a deck is a use that would be reasonable in the R1 zoning district. The plight is not due to the landowner. As we talked about, depending on which lot you were, you may have a lesser setback than what is on this property. Won't alter the essential character. They're not doing it for economic reasons, and it is consistent with city plans. So we did get a comment from the area hydrologist, and he said he does not plan on commenting on this application. Here's a plan showing how that screen porch would look. And then finally, on May 6th, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing, and they actually recommended approval on a 3-2 vote. So I came forward to the City Council with the recommendation of approval that the principal structure shall not be located closer than 57 feet from the ordinary high water level mark. So with that, I would stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Eric? Councilmember Thorson.
We're watching your PowerPoint presentation and some of the information we have in our packet, but there are other pages that weren't. Is there, like that, you flashed that comment about there was a resident feedback that's not in our packet, and then I'm just curious as to why that's not in our packet, but that's more of a, I could think, our deal.
Councilmember Thorson, that's my error. I apologize. We got that email from the DNR area hydrologist. That was my error not to put it in the packet.
You're talking about adjacent properties. What is that defined in our code about what's adjacent? Because you said that the two adjacent, I'm assuming it's the next door neighbors, but then you said you looked further down and that moved it from the 87 and a half feet to 45 feet?
So there's two standards that one has the language adjacent, one has the language vicinity. So the setback is 75 feet or the average of the adjacent properties, which would be the two properties that touch this particular lot. Now, when we look at a variance, we see, is this unique to the property compared to the other properties in the district or in the vicinity? So the setback standard that they're requesting for the variance states adjacent, the two properties adjacent to it. But when looking at, is this property being treated equally, we look at other properties within the vicinity. So hopefully that helps to explain.
That does. And my last question, and I guess the other, those pictures that you had up, that also wasn't in the packet, but is it my understanding that there was an existing deck there and that this new enclosure is going to be right where that was essentially?
Correct.
Okay.
Let me go
So
back.
there was already a structure there, it was a deck, but now they're going to construct an enclosed. Yeah, we went flying by it.
So the area in red here, that's an existing deck.
And then that's where this Four Seasons porch or whatever it's being referred to as is going to go. It's going to be the same footprint as the deck.
with the one exception that they improved the deck recently, and they were allowed to do that because the deck doesn't have to meet the shoreland setback. When they went and looked at the footings for the replacement deck, they needed to move the footings 1 foot closer to the lake.
Okay. And that was my
That's
last
the-
question, because I heard you say they started construction on this. And it was a little concern that, well, why are they starting construction if they need a variance? But that's, the previous construction was work on the existing deck.
Councilmember Thorson, that's correct. There are essentially 2 exceptions from the shoreline setback. One is for a deck and one is for a small water accessory structure. So we were able to issue them a building permit for the deck without the request for a variance. They just wanted to get ahead of that work. And if this variance isn't granted, that's where they'll stop with the deck. But they wanted to make sure the deck was of sufficient integrity to put the screen porch on top.
And so the reason for the variance request is because this is a different type, a deck doesn't require it, but because this is considered something else, that's what is requiring, okay. Well, I guess my personal opinion is that, this is their property. I know we have rules of variances and things, and we've had, I believe the last variance discussion was about a resident who just wanted to add a garage to his structure, and that initially got shot down. But, I struggle with why, a situation like this or a homeowner is essentially adding on to their deck needs a variance request. I think it's unnecessary, but that's the way our code's written, and I'm glad to hear that the planning commission has gone through and vetted this, and if they're recommending approval, I certainly support that. So.
Any other questions for Eric? None? Councilman Wong, I know you were at the meeting.
Oh, I think I
You heard enough?
I heard the process and understand it, so, yeah,
Okay.
I don't have any questions, but, I believe that the statement from the DNR and the hydrologist is on page 59 about, whether they would not comment. So, it is in the public hearing section of the information provided in our packet.
Any questions, concerns? Okay, motion to approve the resolution approving a variance for a shoreland setback of 57 feet to allow the construction of a screen porch at 2612 Swan Avenue East. Is there a moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Anderson, you can put up your,
When's the party?
We'll be over.
good, good. You can invite us all over then. City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, thank you. The next item we have is a Level 2 home occupation interim use permit for Bradley Plumbing at 2081 Park Row, and Eric Swaber will handle that presentation also.
Thank you, City Manager. Thank you, City Council and Mayor. As Mr. Dudek introduced, this is an interim use permit for a Level 2 home occupation at 2081 Park Row. This is an image of the property. What we're addressing here is simply the business that he operates out of his house, and most specifically, the truck that is parked within his driveway. This interim use permit, should it be approved, will only address the business and the van or the truck Any other code violations will need to be addressed through code enforcement. This interim use permit does not grant him relief or a variance from any other potential code violations. So we're dealing strictly with the business and the van. This is some images of the driveway in the van in question. Mr. Bradley stated that he's been operating his business for 37 years. I'm going to go pretty quickly through these. It just happens to be there's a lot of standards that go through level 2 home occupation and the interim use permit that would allow him to park that van. But you can see here that a level 2 business in item 6 specifically states heating, plumbing, or air conditioning service. He is running a plumbing business. Second is the standards that all home occupations will need to follow. Again, I won't read all 9 of these, but in addition to the conditions of the interim use permit, all these standards will need to be followed by Mr. Bradley, and he stated that he should be able to meet these, the business activities that happen at this residence are bookkeeping, invoicing, scheduling, and the like. No commercial plumbing is occurring at his property. For the interim use permit review, there are also a number of standards that happen to be fairly similar to the variance standards. But first, that this is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. This property is a low density residential, and level 2 home occupations are allowed with an interim use permit in low density residential. Second, the use will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare. Again, we're just talking about the truck, which will need to be parked in the driveway and in compliance with all the city code requirements for parking. Third is that the use is compatible with the present and future land uses. This is low density residential and zoned R1, which allow home occupations. When we talk about the conditions of the interim use permit, when the business is sold or when Mr. Bradley moves from this property, that interim use permit will expire. The fourth is that the use and appearance of the use is compatible with the adjacent properties. Again, we're just simply talking about the truck. Any other code violations will be enforced. They are not, this interim use permit is not granting any other exceptions to the code. The fifth is that the use can be adequately supported by urban services. This will not, the truck itself will not add any impacts to urban services. And then the sixth is that the use will not create an excessive burden on existing park, schools, or other public facilities. And again, the van or the truck will not put any additional burden on park, schools, or other public facilities. 7, the use is sufficiently compatible and separated by distance from the residentially zoned use. Again, the truck can only be driveway. 8th is the use is in harmony and purpose of the chapter and zoning districts. A level 2 home occupation is allowed in this zoning district. 9th, the use does not create an intrusion of excess odor, glare, or generally unsightfulness. The truck does not create an excessive amount of those issues. 10th is will not impose by agreement any additional costs to the public. The truck will not create any additional costs. 11th, will terminate upon a tangible date. Again, we're asking that it expire when either of 2 conditions happen. Mr. Bradley sells his business or Mr. Bradley sells this house. And then finally, 12, if applicable, the proposed use is consistent with the officially adopted plans and overlays. As we discussed, a level 2 home permit is allowed. The truck is not a 6-ton vehicle, and it will need to be parked today it says it cannot extend into the alley or street right of way, but the next item on the agenda is some amendments to the zoning ordinance, and should those be approved, the new parking standards would be that the vehicle would need to be parked 10 feet behind the curb line. Finally, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the May 6th regular meeting, and they unanimously recommended approval of the IUP. So again, the resolution in front of you has two conditions of approval, that the, one condition with two subparts. The interim use permit will expire when either of the following events occur. If Gregory Bradley sells or closes the Bradley plumbing business, or if Gregory Bradley sells the single-family residence at 2081 Park Road. With that, I stand for any questions that the City Council may have.
Any questions for Eric? Councilmember Peterson.
I lived up in that area, and every time I go out to National Night Out, the neighbors go crazy about his business practices and all the stuff. I know we're just talking about the truck, but I'm hoping he can, comply. I'm not saying that he can't, but I'm hoping the city, Scott, will be monitoring it, because it's been a problem. It's unsightly, and if I had to live next to it or across the street from it, I wouldn't be happy. Things haven't been any, excuse me, any better.
Take your time, take your time.
So I'm just trying to protect the neighborhood. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Thorson.
So, and I understand we're not discussing any potential code enforcement issues, but is the reason that this raises to a level of home occupancy is just because of the size of the truck? And is that?
Councilmember Thorson, it's both the size of the truck and that it's a plumbing business. We have a list of what would be a level 1 home occupation, and then a list of other businesses that have more of an impact that are level 2. And heating, plumbing businesses fall into that level 2 category. So that's why it's an interim use permit instead of simply administrative permit if it was a level 1 home occupation.
I'm kind of racking my brain here to try to remember what, we've had these past discussions. There was the Tony Iden deal that went on for a long time. And there seemed to be some confusion that what constitutes home occupancy and not, and that, if you're running a small engine repair business out of your garage, you're physically there working. That's an obvious example. But if you work for a small engine repair business like Carpenter's in town, and you drive a box truck similar to Mr. Bradley's, and you just are parking it in your home, that's not a home occupancy. You're just driving a vehicle that happens to be your line of work, but you're not operating a business out of your home. But I guess I'd have to go back, and I'm not going to take up time. I'll have to go back on my own and refresh my memory on this stuff. But I thought that we already kind of went through all this already and kind of adopted some changes about what constitutes home occupation, and then what, as far as trailers and truck sizes and whatnot. But I guess I'm just a little confused at why the fact that he just parks his vehicle there, that automatically means that it's a home occupancy.
What triggered for him to do this? I guess he's been there, that truck's been there forever.
Yeah, and Mayor, I'm not sure what triggered this to come forward with this. I can tell you that there has been many ongoing code compliance issues, and even in the recent past, and I guess I'm unsure at this evening if all of those have been corrected, but I know our code compliance had been working with the property just in the recent past on issues there. And so what brought this forth right now, this would be, to my knowledge, this is our only other permit that we have in the city, as the previous one that we had been eliminated. And as you know, we have many of these different vehicles around the city. So I'm not sure if this was brought forward because of some of the other code compliance issues that were going on, and this was part of that brought forward to get this, at least this part of it rectified. Eric, I don't know if you have any of that background.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Dudek. Yes, it's my understanding that it was through communications with the code compliance individuals that they requested that he apply for this home occupation. The other thing I would state is I think Councilmember Thorson's analogy, falls that if you worked at a different location and you just brought a truck home that might say that business, that wouldn't be a home occupation. In this case, Mr. Bradley states that he doesn't have an office in some other location. So his business address is this house. And so it's not that he has an office or a contractor's yard somewhere else and just brings his truck home. He operates the business out of his home, and that's what warranted the home occupation interim use permit.
Yeah, and that's just where I guess I'm not necessarily in agreement with that, because if he's, if my toilet backs up and I call him, he doesn't come and take my toilet and bring it to his house and fix it. All of his work is not at his house physically, if I'm understanding that correctly. He parks his vehicle there, and he's obviously self-employed and doesn't have an office, and I'd imagine that this came about because there must have been some complaints, but I don't understand what is violating any ordinances by saying, oh, you have a van parked in your yard, you can't do that because it's labeled up as commercial. I mean, I thought we already kind of went over all that stuff when we were dealing with the Tony Iden situation, but
The only other piece that I can think of that, in looking at the pictures here, was also the assurance that the vehicle is parked on the pavement or on the parking lot, or on the driveway, I should say. I think in one of those pictures that you see in there, it was spread across the front yard. And so that might have been some of the other things that brought this forth with code compliance.
Yeah, there was a picture that Eric put up that was not in our packet, that was a winter scene that showed 3 vehicles across that, without seeing what was actually underneath the snow, it appeared to me, right, as a potential for a code issue at the time. And I guess I have concern hearing some of the concerns of council. I have concerns knowing that he's had code issues in the past, and that basically what we're granting him is the opportunity to park there until he either moves or sells his business. I guess my recommendations would, I'd like this to be time-bound or reviewed. In the event that additional code violations do pop up, what grounds do we have to rescind his ability to park his vehicle there?
And the comment I would make is, the reference this evening that this was looked at as specifically for the vehicle parking and this home occupation, and none of the other code issues were looked at this point. And I could, with that said, could come back and get a report from our code compliance on the status of those issues, if those have all been remedied, or are there still open issues with that, to Councilmember Peterson's point.
We do have code violations there, I'm assuming.
And I'm not sure if they've been corrected at this point or not, if they're still outstanding, but I do know there had been in the recent past.
We can certainly, the application has been made. There's been some concerns expressed about the condition of the property, making sure we have some conditions. If what we want to do is lay this over till your next meeting, so we can get a better picture of what's out there right now, what it looks like, and perhaps craft some additional conditions on what might trigger a review or revocation. Right now, you've got in this proposed permit that if he sells the property or closes the business, the permit goes away. We could take a look if there's other conditions to help incentivize the cleaning up and the general appearance of the property.
In addition, I can get, code compliance reports and also have our our fire chief here to discuss and give an update on the status of the property, if things are open or what the status of that is.
You want a table? Motion to table?
I'll make that motion.
Motion to table, Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole.
It's tabled to your next meeting, the date certain, which is 15th.
Table to the next meeting, which is 15th. Yep, 14th is Monday, my birthday, just to let you know.
Like that.
All those in favor signify, or do you even vote on it? You do vote on it, okay. Motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Motion carries. Table that.
Mayor, Council, our next one again is, Eric will also present this. This is a zoning code text amendments to implement the 2040 comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Mr. Dudek and City Council and Mayor. The Planning Commission has been working quite diligently on this for a little over a year. The comprehensive plan was adopted back in December of 2019. The zoning ordinance is required to be amended to comply with the comprehensive plan's goals and policies. And that update process began in July of 2020. The proposal before you has 6 sections. One of them includes an update to the traffic code regarding truck parking restrictions. The other 5 are sections 3, definitions, section 6, residential districts, section 7, mixed-use districts, and section 8, overlay districts, and then finally, section 10, general regulations. And I'll go into an overview of those individual sections next. Currently, the title of this section is truck parking restrictions. What we're proposing to do is change the title to restrictions on certain vehicles and addresses restrictions of parking commercial vehicles within residential districts. So for the portions of the zoning code that are amended, there's quite a few changes to the definitions section. This includes adding 41 new definitions and amending 25 existing definitions. The amendment addresses 3 general topics. 1, to better describe the uses regulated within the ordinance. 2, to address topics added to the ordinance through the proposed other sections of this amendment, or to update changes in state statutes or rules. Regarding residential districts, we've revised the 3 tables that describe uses and lot requirements. So for table 3, which is the residential use districts, we are actually adding a cottage development, a development that would allow a smaller type of single-family home, address a number of accessory uses, and combine the residential and mixed-use tables into one common table. Table 4, which is currently the residential district lot requirements, we are reducing the minimum lot sizes for R1 and R2 to implement the densities within the 2040 comprehensive plan. And second, reducing the lot width requirements that would allow these new lot areas. The third change is table 5, which is the residential design district requirements, which increases the maximum densities within the R1 and R2 and add a minimum livable floor space requirement for 2-family and townhome uses. For the mixed-use districts, we're revising two of those tables. First, Table 6, mixed-use districts uses, we're moving that into Table 3. So Table 6 will disappear. And there were a number of amendments to uses that are permitted or conditional. This is the largest part that required the changes to the definition sections. There were some uses that didn't have definitions, and there's some things that we're modifying that we wanted to modify the definition as well. The second change to the mixed-use district is those mixed-use district lot requirements. We are adding a minimum lot area per dwelling unit. These are mixed uses, so we're addressing essentially the residential density within the mixed-use districts. And we're increasing the lot size of the MU1 district from 0 square feet to 1 square feet. For overlay districts, we are amending 3 of the overlay districts. The first is the downtown overlay district, where we are prohibiting prohibiting townhouses within the MU1 zoning district. So to clarify, the MU1 district is not completely within the overlay district. There are areas of town that are MU1 zoning, but not downtown overlay. Those areas would be allowed to have townhomes. If it is MU1 within the downtown overlay, townhomes would not be allowed. The intent is to have more density than townhomes. Second, shoreland district. We are doing a couple things. Currently, there is not a minimum lot width. We're going to add that. We are adding a minimum lot area of a 1-unit building to be consistent with the R1 zoning district. And when we look at units that have 2 to 4 units per building, that would be consistent with the R2. Originally, when we posted for the public hearing, we were having all of the units be consistent with the R2. The area hydrologists expressed concerns that that could create too much impervious surface. So that's we've since changed that single family use to be consistent with the existing R1. Again, when I talked about the tables, we're reducing the lot width in the R1 and R2, as well as the lot area. We wanted to keep the shoreland overlay what the rules are today, essentially. And then the third is planned unit development. There's quite a few changes here, including clarifying the purpose and objectives of the district, which is important when evaluating what is suitable for a PUD and what should be straight zoning. The second is clarify the types of eligible. Third is to clarify other sections of the zoning ordinance that can be deviated from the PUD standards, such as lot width, densities, the like. Fourth bullet is implement parking standards. Fifth, add a concept PUD process. So kind of a low-level opportunity for the developer and the planning commission to review the proposal before they come with the full set of plans. Sixth would be encourage a neighborhood meeting before the public hearing. Seventh is update the preliminary and final PUD process. Eighth is update the submittal requirements for a PUD. And finally, update the PUD amendment and revocation process. Regarding the general regulations, we have 5 subsections that we're addressing. And I'll go over each of those as follows. First, for usable open space, we change the townhome requirement to requiring 25% of the lot area be usable open space. And we're adding a requirement that open space within the cottage development, which is a new use proposed within the zoning ordinance. For supplemental regulations, we are adding additional clarity to the accessory dwelling units, including prohibiting a ADU on a lot that currently has a duplex. So the intent is to only have 2 units per lot. We wanted to make sure that with a duplex, they couldn't apply for a 3rd unit. clarify the lot width for a lot with an ADU, provide minimum and maximum floor areas for that ADU, allow specific locations for the ADU, and to allow a type 1 home occupation, but prohibit a type 2 home occupation within an ADU. Number 2, special infill housing at a minimum floor area. For number 3, townhomes, we are eliminating a current regulation regarding transformers and clarifying that the density needs to comply with the comprehensive plan. Number 4 is this new cottage development, which includes a density and minimum lot area requirements, height and roof pitch requirements, lot coverage and floor area requirements, setback requirements, open space, parking locations, and porch regulations. And then finally, for two-family dwellings, limit the location of two-family dwellings from each other and clarify the minimum width of a common wall between the two-family dwellings. Regarding architectural requirements, remove the maximum number of connected units. Second is to have a minimum number of design features. Third is regulate the location of garages for townhomes. Fourth is adding comparable design standards. And then finally, garages, where garages are located for two-family dwellings. For landscape and screening, we're prohibiting trees from being placed in the being planted within drainage utility easements. And then a number of changes for off-street parking and loading requirements. Noting that the new commercial vehicles requirements in section 7204 also apply, allowing the city engineer to determine the parking space dimensions for commercial vehicles, eliminating truck and bus parking, because that is located within section 72.04. Create a table outlining parking locations, numbers, and time limits, clarifying where driveways are allowed and how the parking within the driveway is regulated. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on April 1st and then tabled this review until their meeting on May 6th. During the public hearing, the majority of the issues that were discussed happened to be the shoreland district, what is the appropriate standard there, and then a lot of them had to do with parking regulations. One of the big topics was there are two different sizes of recreational vehicles, and at the version for the April 1st, both sizes of recreational vehicles were not allowed to be parked more than 72 hours in a driveway. We changed that because the smaller of the two size vehicles should be able to meet the proposed driveway parking requirement of being 10 feet from the property line, in addition to the 25-foot front yard setback. So if you have a vehicle under, I believe it's 30 feet in length, you would be able to park that in your driveway without a time limit, where a vehicle larger than that would only be there at most 72 hours. So with those changes, the commission unanimously recommended approval of the zoning code text amendment ordinance. And then we have this lengthy title of the ordinance that I summarized in the beginning, but that is the ordinance that is recommended to be approved tonight. With that, I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Eric?
There's a whole lot of moving parts. I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable saying yay or nay with all of the changes and not completely understanding everything that took place. I did read through a lot of it and had questions. I had questions concerning around parking. I believe I have a 30-foot setback from my garage to the curb. I have a vehicle that I drive, a pickup, that is 20 feet long. If I don't park that against my garage door, I am now within the 10 feet of the curb, and I am now in violation. I know there are other shorter driveways. I may have completely misunderstood what I read. But a lot of this is the first time that I had seen it or read it. The changing of lot sizes, rezoning where townhouses can and cannot be constructed. There's just a lot there for me to absorb. So, if I'm a one-person island, that's fine. My recommendations are that we table this and move this to a workshop so that we can have greater dialogue, and this might be the only topic of that workshop, so that I can get a better understanding. But again, if I'm the only one, so be it.
Motion to table it. Is there a
I'll second.
second?
With direction to, do you want it to go to a workshop or study session date? I don't know what your upcoming session.
I'd say the workshop,
Is there,
sooner the better.
yeah, I was going to say, is there any timeline as far as now that this has been implemented, as far as completing it or laying it over too long or anything like that?
Well, remind me, this was city initiated, not by an application, correct?
Right.
City attorney, that's correct. So we don't have the 120-day time clock that we normally
That's
have.
what I was getting at.
So we got time, plenty of time?
Yep, for sure.
Okay.
But we can get it on a schedule for a workshop to discuss just this, because I would agree there's lots of issues, and the issue that Councilman brings up about the driveway issue, that's we've had issues where vehicles are parked out to the curb line and things like that. But just with our community, with the off-street parking requirements in the wintertime, just to make sure that we fully understand what that means, and then the enforcement if this is adopted.
Mayor, could I ask, I think what Councilmember Cole said about the driveway is very informative. I think the intention is this is better than the current case, but I'll put together an exhibit that shows kind of the difference between the existing ordinance, what's proposed. I guess I'd ask, does any other council member have any specific items that I can make sure I bring forward an example? Otherwise, between now and the work session, you can communicate through Mr. Dudek, and I'll make sure to bring those examples forward. Thank you.
Well, the one thing that came to mind, and I don't know if I'm reading it right either, is if a camper was to be picked up the night before and you bring it to your house, and it doesn't fit in your driveway, you're putting it on the street, is that a 2-hour time limit, or is that a 72-hour time limit that you can park it on the street?
The intention was 72 hours, but I'll make sure that we have it, represented correctly in the proposed amendment.
Oh, the intent was 72 hours, not 2 hours.
Yes.
Okay. I read it wrong then. We have a motion to table, unless there's something else. No, I'll second it. We already had a first and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carried.
And by doing so, I don't want to discount all the hard work, energy,
Oh,
and
no,
effort that's
right.
gone into all of this. This has been over, from what I understand, over a year-long project. So it's not, it's 10 year on the council. A lot of conversation took place before I arrived, and it was just, as I was reading through this, it was just a whole lot to absorb in one sitting on a Sunday morning.
Duly noted. Okay. Councilmember, City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, thank you. The next item that we have is the flood hazard mitigation grant assistance to the city of North St. Paul via the DNR. This has to do with our application for 2483 Second Avenue that we've been discussing for some time. I did submit the application back a few weeks ago, and basically this was a response now back from the DNR requesting a resolution to be approved by the council, along with documentation showing that funding is available in our city funds. So along with that would be an accounting attachment from our surface water utility fund to support that those funds are available internally. You can see in the grant submittal that I had submitted, basically had a $300,000 budget for this project. The maximum grant funding through the DNR is $120,000, which leaves $180,000 funding from the city should this move forward. I can tell you that this grant application, for all intents and purposes, I believe will be issued. This is just the final process in submitting now the resolution and the supporting documents. By doing so, we're not committing to the grant. They would hold this in our name for us to now then to go the next step with negotiating with the property owner. And then it's ultimately the council's decision if we move forward with this. So by your approving the resolution this evening, it does not lock us into having to move forward with the project as a whole. It just finalizes the grant application with the DNR. In the grant application, you can see the information that was provided. Basically, the budget that was used to put this together was a $250,000. These are all just budget numbers, but $250,000 to acquire the property, $10,000 for asbestos mitigation, $25,000 for demolition cost, grading $10,000, and restoration of the habitat at $5,000, with a total of $300,000 cost. Now, those are all costs to be, negotiated and finalized, but that's the budget that was submitted with this grant.
And what time frame do we have? You're saying it's kind of open-ended, but I'm assuming we have some sort of deadline.
Yeah, in talking with the DNR, they will be very flexible with us on negotiating this. If the council decides to go ahead with this, it could be as long as going through the end of the year to try to put something together. So that the DNR is extremely flexible with this grant opportunity.
I guess one of the questions I have is for their approval, was it based on being a floodplain, or is it based on just our recommendation, or
Yeah.
how does that work?
I didn't get any feedback on the approval process, other than, it submitted the grant application, and then they responded back here now last week with the request for this resolution and the supporting documents of the funds available.
Any questions for city manager? Councilmember Thorson?
Well, I was included in that email with the initial question with this, what was the contact person's name?
Pat.
Pat. And it seemed like his initial, well, in the email that I have in front of me, but he said this seems like an excellent candidate for our program. And, when we had earlier discussion, we didn't have these pictures to reference, just, this discussion that, yeah, there's flooding. And, on page 150, you can see the looking out into the street from his driveway. I mean, you'd think you're standing in the middle of a lake there. And, this is something that's happened several times to varying degrees. I think this was that back in that substantial rainfall back in 2011. Yeah, it's at 7/5/11. I mean, clearly there's issues there in this area. I mean, this stuff doesn't happen. It's not like it happens prevalently all over town. And I think that this certainly serves a public purpose to pursue this, and hopefully we can, reach a reasonable arrangement with the homeowner. I guess I'm a little concerned about, we've got some numbers here of how does that impact negotiating. But I think we can reach a reasonable agreement, and hopefully that can be done soon. And then we can bring that forward to the council for consideration. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't approve this just so the DNR can process the application.
And the other piece, just so council's aware, if we move ahead with this, just want to remind you that this property would then need to be kept in open space into perpetuity with this grant acceptance with the DNR.
I've seen pictures of other residential properties, and one is backyards of, I don't know where it is, but same time frame, the whole backyards were underwater as a lake. I mean, it was terrible that people were sending me this. So your point, you say, I think there are other areas within the city that this does happen. And this was one, this is the same time my basement flooded, which has never flooded before. And I think this was a very unusual circumstance that this happened, but it has happened, since then it's happened, but not as much. And then we also did the work behind there now with some sort of ponding area. But Councilmember Wong.
Yeah, I'm curious on if the neighboring homes have similar issues and whether this is, we see maps of the manholes and the catch basins and stuff on here, but are neighboring properties having the same experience? Because then it must be a systemic issue that doesn't necessarily impact one house, but may impact several others.
Speak to that. There's two houses kitty corner from the house that we're talking about, and they flood out. They're right on the corner there. I don't know what the one street is, the second, and is it the cross street? It's the Anderson house and the mayor's house. And they've had issues, not as bad as the other one, but there has been some issues.
One of the big issues with this is the elevation of the house that the house was constructed at. The low openings are lower than any other house in the area. So there's the neighboring house to this property to the west was recently sold last year and renovated and has been reoccupied. That's a Rambler home just to the west, and then there'd be another home just to the east of this property. But this one here is the one that has received the major flooding on those occasions. And again, it has a lot to do with the low openings of the construction level.
And to the home to the east, was that renovation some sort of grading, or the homeowner decided to do something?
Yeah, the home to the east, I don't believe there was really much of any work there. There was the home to the west that was sold last summer, and it was renovated and resold. And as the mayor mentioned, there was with the ponding area that was created with the street project, there was directly at the rear of this property in the alleyway, the unimproved alley, there was a storm sewer installed and a catch basin installed back there. So there potentially will be the opportunity to regrade this lot to also use that as another overflow outlet. And again, remember that a lot of this it's going to take long into the future to try to remedy some of these problems, but this street flooding occurs when our storm sewer system becomes completely overtaxed, and it's a chain of events. Up behind Cowan School, there's 3 different ponding areas there that was designed to slow the flow of the surface water coming down through this area. And so if you have a rain event today and those ponds are at a low level, there are no issues. But if you have a sustained multiple events of rains, and now those ponds are all at their full capacity, and then you get another heavy storm coming through, there's no capacity to hold any of that back. All that water is flowing through immediately, and then it's surcharging the system, and this is the low area where it vents out of the catch basin there and causes the area street flooding in that.
So aside from this particular site, are there other opportunities, or is there a volume of expected, water mitigated to this basin to help the whole system? Sorry, does that make sense?
Well, again, it's the long-term reconstruction of all of our infrastructure, because it's not just, replace a section of pipe in this block section. It has to be something that has to be constructed throughout the system, and just with all the changes over the time with, different rain gardens and water ponding and retaining your water on site for developments. I mean, we obviously don't have the commercial developments left to do, but the residential side. So we have a lot of runoff, and maintaining our ponding areas and keeping those clean and capacity will all play into these factors, but also upsizing, storm sewer systems where we can, but also monitoring that we're not causing then a problem farther downstream. It's, the site at the old City Hall site, there's a commercial site that has in the past had a lot of runoff and flooding issues. And with the construction of that, watershed requirements, there will be underground tank and storage sites there to maintain their runoff and stormwater from the roofs and parking lots on site as much as possible. So just that site, even though it's having much more impervious surface, is actually going to be improved dramatically.
And again, by approving this doesn't mean that it's a given that he's going to have this property mitigated from us.
No, I mean, I guess, at this point, the chain of action with the storm events, this flooding could reoccur, will likely reoccur until at some time long into the future that we're able to do system improvements to prevent this from happening.
And again, this flooding's been going on for a long time.
Yep. But and I can tell you that working with the DNR has been very good, very easy to work with, and the submittal with this, and then sending back the final request to process this through. And that's the split, 120,000 is the maximum matching fund from the DNR.
All right. So again, if we approve this, it doesn't mean that.
We're not locked into.
We're not locked in.
We're not locked into it, then it solidifies the grant and locks that grant in for us, and then starts the negotiation process with the property owner. And then ultimately, once that deal is put together, whatever that may or may not be, it comes back to the council, and you decide if you want to move ahead with it.
What kind of reporting is asked for the grant, and does staff have capacity for that at this point?
Yes, I mean, well, basically, the reporting is, once this is completed, I mean, and the site is cleared and it's open space, that's really the end of the process with the DNR. And just to maintain, the other thing is that the property is maintained into open space into perpetuity. We couldn't use this to acquire the property and then turn it into something else in the future or sell the property.
Okay. So the motion is for a resolution, or any other questions? Not the motion's for resolution for flood hazard mitigation grant funding assistance to the city of North St. Paul. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Nay.
Motion carries. Councilman
Thank you.
Manager Dudek.
We'll get that information submitted and keep you abreast of our next steps on that process then. Next item that we have is the request from the American Legion for a special event car show permit for your consideration. This is something that the American Legion has been doing a car show internally on their site and looking to get back to that. And so this is up for your consideration. It's been something that's been held in conjunction kind of along with our normal car show. All parties work together on this, so it's been received very well.
Any questions for city manager? I don't have a resolution here, so motion is for American Legion special event car show.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. City
Mayor,
manager.
Council, our next event is with Church of St. Peter, special event permit. They have applied for a special event permit, and this is something new that they haven't done in the past, but they're looking to do a procession about the city and making 3 stops to have prayer, and it would be at Polar Park, St. Mary's Cemetery, and Silver Lake Park, and just looking to stop at those locations for, probably 15, 20 minutes. This is a new initiative by St. Peter's, and just trying to get involvement, and they're really uncertain on how many people they would have at this point, but it's something new that they would like to try, and as a community outreach.
Interesting. So the motion is for approval of a special event permit for the Church of St. Peter for event on June 5th this year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City Manager Dudek.
I believe that's the last item, but bringing back the item that was pulled from the original agenda.
So we have item J. And that is the general claims of $539,000.19, or $19.84. Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, I'm on page 37 of the packet, and this is the WSB and Associates bills. There's several of them listed, and they're all saying March 2021. I'm just getting some clarification on this, that, it's June now, and if these bills are, even if it was dated March 31st, it's 61 days. Am I interpreting that correctly, or is this just the description is saying this is work that was done in March and we got the bill? Because I don't see that detail here.
Maybe Kyle can answer that.
Councilmember Thorson, so yes, those are for services performed in March, but typically, we do not receive the March invoices till a little later in April, and then for statutes, for meeting, councils that meet twice a month, it's 35 days from receiving it. And I can get back to you on the exact date that we receive these, but we stamp all invoices.
So these invoices we're gonna approve here are potentially outside of that 35-day, or are they inside that?
I would, here, do you mind if I just look them up quick?
Sure. And while he's doing that, just another follow-up question of the city manager on those last 2 items that we approved.
Yes.
Is there a reason why those things, like those types of items, aren't on a consent agenda, or do they need to be city action items just because of the nature of the request, or?
They don't need, we could have put them on the consent agenda. I think the item was just to make sure that council is fully aware of it, what's going on, and I think we were trying to do that more so than putting things just on the consent agenda. And so if there's the awareness of what's going on, and if there's any comment or anything on them, but that was really the only reason.
Well, I'm just, given light of the findings of the audit, I just want to make sure that, when I see that, when I'm reading the bills, it says March, and again, we don't actually have the bill, and I wasn't sure if it was just saying, this is the description of the bill, but we got it on May 1st, and now it's in the packet to be approved, but, outside of that, it says March, it's June 1st, the month of April is 30 days and May is 31 days, it's just I'm just asking about that.
Yep.
But again, we have an obligation to pay the bills, so I'm not objecting to getting them paid. I'm just questioning whether or not it's falling outside of our requirement to pay them within 35 days.
So, Councilmember Thorson, the first invoice listed for McKnight Access, March 2021, we have a stamp date of May 20th.
Okay, so we're good. So, okay.
And, go ahead.
No, I mean, if, I'm assuming that's the case for the rest of these. I just wanted a clarification on that, that's all. So,
So the motion,
Go ahead.
motion is for the general claims of $539,019.84. Is there a motion?
so moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, City Manager Dudek, I believe you're up for the
Yes, so reports, that is the
reports
last
of
action
City
item.
Manager.
Reports, and that's a good segue into, talking about those, the WSP bills and the timing. One thing I want to report back, we're making great strides in working on the escrow accounts. Lisa Ritchie has been working on that, putting together, that's something that we've talked about in the past, about having our escrow accounts and being able to reconcile those, and also be able to bill back if necessary. A lot of these projects that we've had, over the many, many different years, about being really able to track that. That when on an application, applicant might put down a $1,500 escrow account, but then as that process goes on, or in some cases lingers on for a long time, to really be able to track and follow those associated costs, whether they be engineering costs, zoning, planning, legal, that we're able to invoice those fees back. So what we would be doing is holding that initial escrow dollar amount in escrow, and as those funds come back in, or these bills come in, we would invoice that out, and then use that escrow amount as a deposit, refund that deposit at the end if necessary, or use it depending on. But I can just tell you, so far, we've made great strides in putting together that, and I think it's going to, it will be a big change in what the process has been for the past many, many years, to track that and recoup our cost that we've invested in a lot of these projects.
And I'm assuming the parks, too, the park rentals, will be able to take a fee now, or, for a damage deposit.
Correct.
Be able to track that much better than
Correct.
we did before.
Yep, and that's something that they're working on, and I know that Carrie's been looking into that, and getting back to the deposit, and something we want to meet with council and talk about that, and really get a program back together, deposit and all the other operational, and we'll have some information for you to consider. But just as the things that you heard tonight, we've got to get a handle on that and get a handle on it quickly. I mean, getting a call this past weekend, call at 1 o'clock in the morning. What do we do when we've got a building full of items that were left over, and we know we've got a tenant coming in the next morning, potentially at 7 o'clock, and it's just become very problematic. Not only the items that are left behind, but the magnitude of the cleanup. The inside of the building is one thing, and the exterior is another. And then you heard this evening about the potential noises and noise ordinances and that. So we've got many things that we need to look at, and we're seemingly having people utilizing our buildings from outside of the city. Not only our North St. Paul residents, but residents from well outside of the city that are using the buildings. And we welcome all. We just want to make sure that they're treating our facilities with respect.
Right. Good.
Let's see, the other thing, so the sidewalk work, as I mentioned, that continues in the downtown with that, and been really trying to keep up with notifying the businesses so we can work with them with access as things progress with that. Carrie's been out. We've also made some temporary signs for some of the businesses to make sure that they can keep their clientele coming, and directing them to a side door or back door, and trying to mitigate those times as much as possible. I mentioned earlier in our workshop this evening, and I just want to bring that up again, that Quick Trip has had their pre-construction meeting here last week, and that process is now underway. It's going to be a whirlwind of construction. They're quick to move along. We're going to start to work on, I believe, water main tomorrow, and progressing on getting the building up. Today was the first day that Quick Trip was also in our building here at City Hall with their job fair. They'll be in the building here conducting that. And, you know, just a relatively large employer when you think about a convenience store, gas station, convenience store, small grocery, if you will, of what Quick Trip offers. But in talking to them today, they're looking at and hiring upwards of 55 employees for that, just for that location. So it's not a small employer. And so very much welcoming them to the community, and they're very community oriented, and working with them, they're excited to be here, and I think will be a good long-term addition to our community. The construction at the apartments on the Anchor side down there, you can see the work going on there now. They're moving along very well. They literally have seemingly like their own lumber yard there. They've got lumber piled up all over down there, but the crews are working. You see the framing going up, and that's now starting to come out of the ground, if you will, moving along well. Downtown, the apartment building down there, last conversation I've had with that, they've got over 40 leads lined up for the building. Now, whether they'll all convert to tenants will be the other thing, but they have over 40 solid inquiries at this point that they'll be working with. So the information there is moving along quite well. Businesses are excited to get the sidewalk put in place and get back to some of the normalcy as we were seeing with the whole COVID return and opening up things. That's been extremely positive. The activity that was around the state, I think you've seen this weekend, has really showed people a desire to want to get out and get back to outdoor activities and things. So a lot going with that. As I mentioned earlier, we're progressing very well with the hiring process for replacement of our police chief. Civil Service Commission had been doing interviews ongoing with that, so we've got that process narrowing down very soon, and we'll have something moving forward with that quickly. Also with our finance director's position that's opening, also working on that and hoping to have something done on that fairly quickly also. That application process closed last week, so we are actively working on that to fill that, and staying active with a lot of things going on. I think what else I
How's
had.
the 7th Street project going?
7th Street project, the 7th Street Townhomes is underway. The first foundation of the first twin home is in place. They were backfilling. I can tell you we did have an issue with that last week of a complaint of working after hours. They were finishing up work, my understanding, up there on the backfill, and at precisely 7 o'clock, we received a complaint of work going on there at their hours are basically up till 7 p.m. So that was addressed and talked to the developer about, but otherwise they're progressing along there very well up there. All the water and sewer is in for the new road, and the construction is underway on the first new twin home located on would be the north side of the new road that's going in. So activities all around, and keeping up with them. Yes. So trying to think if there's anything else. Any other questions on anything? Candy?
City cleanup?
Oh, yes, yes. The city cleanup items, you can see some of the items that we have on there to date. So far to date, the expenses of $8,135.33. So they're shredding some of our directional signage that will be saved for future events. Our hauling and disposal cost for tennis, which was, I believe it was 14 dumpsters 14 dumpsters of material that was hauled away from that. Our electronic recycling, those are still pending because they virtually go through everything that was collected. Some of the items are chargeable, some of them are not chargeable, depending on what they are, because they can recover the precious metals and things from that. Appliance recycling was $1,248 worth of appliance recycling, and you can see the items that were collected there. The air conditioners and dehumidifiers, dishwashers, dryers, freezers, and the list goes on. Other items, 70 tires with no rims, 41 tires with rims on them. Public Works staff was separating that for recycling. The 150 mattresses, 150 mattresses collected. Again, the 14 dumpsters of material, 14,500 pounds of electronics. That was something that we talked about in the future. Electronics is a big issue, and something that was lesser this time than what we've had in the past was appliances. In the past, appliances was a big thing, and electronics was not as big as what this is. Now it's flip-flopped, where there was lesser appliances. We were initially set up, we had a semi-trailer there on the site that day in anticipation for appliances, and we didn't put a dent in filling that. But the electronics, over 14,000 pounds of electronics. 50 lawnmowers that were brought in for disposal. So we've tried to assemble so far to date on what the savings were to our residents versus if they had to dispose of these items through the bulk collection. So over $13,000 in potential savings to our residents in lieu of if these items were disposed and paid for through the bulk collection program. So quite successful. You can see also I attached a letter there that we received from one of our residents. Very thankful for the event and the cleanup. Thought it was very, very well organized, and just had a lot of praise for it, and thank you to all the staff and the departments working. So just wanted to attach that letter because it was a nice letter. She was very pleased with the event, and we've heard that from others also. So once we get the final totals in, we'll continue to update this list and give a complete final report as we're waiting for the electronics to come back in. So the shredded event, I think that's something that we have to look at in the future to maybe do that separately. As we had it set up, as obviously part of this event, but there was not anywhere near the shredding that we had anticipated to be used. And talking with the shredding company, they've seen that in multiple different locations. In some cases, it was, just a steady stream of use. In other cases, it was something similar to what we experienced. So unknown, if it has anything to do with COVID, people were dealing with it on their own while they've been home all these times, or what the reason was, or if it was just part of the cleanup and people were concentrating more on the bulk disposal. Also, the other thing with the electronics, talking about the number of electronics we came in this year, if there would be a way that we could have different lines of disposal so people didn't have to wait in line, and if they just had electronics, they could go right to that process. But overall, it was quite successful.
Can I ask a question about so that event is included in our contract with tennis, correct? The one cleanup day, is it included in our contract?
It's in there, not at a cost neutral.
Yeah,
But that they would participate,
yeah.
yes.
And is it my understanding that they provide this same service to other cities that they contract with?
Yes.
And because what I've been hearing is we've done it very differently than how they traditionally do it. It seems like we have quite a bit of involvement where they, other cities, they don't, the extent of the city's involvement is just telling them the event will be held at this parking lot.
Yep.
And then tennis does everything.
That is an option to do. It basically comes down to cost and what they would do with it, but that is absolutely an option that they can coordinate coordinate their services. They would look at other vendors for the electronics to do, because they don't do the electronics recycling or anything like that. But yeah, there's a whole multitude of ways that this could be done.
Okay.
It was a good event.
Yeah,
Very good event.
went very well, yes. The last item I have is, again, with our civic clerk implementation. And Carrie, I don't know if you want to go through that again, as you discussed with, if there's any other comments that you have, or maybe for our viewing audience to let our residents know where we're at and the different format that people are seeing out there. And if council, if you have any other comment on that. But it's a process that's proving very much, I think, will gain a lot of efficiencies from.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I didn't see anybody running out of the council chambers, so I figured you figured out how to work through your packet with your tabs okay, and we'll get you some help for your iPads. But just so our residents truly understand the commitment that staff has in pulling resources together for our council to give you the information that you need to make the decisions you need to do, and also to make that information available to our residents. We've been working on this tool here. We're getting much closer. We're ready to go to the next phase of letting our elected officials have access to our portal. We'll be reaching out to the residents who have subscribed to our Notify Me modules on our existing website to get them transitioned. And I have a personal goal of at least doubling every single number of the people who are logged in, because I know a lot of people logged in those meetings are staff, because we're just making sure everything gets out. So we will continue to work along. I encourage you, please, to reach out to me, to staff, with any kind of questions you have, ideas you have. And again, too, I'm really, the tech geek in me loves the whole hashtag thing and being able to tag different elements in our packets so that we can search them as we develop. Just listening tonight on the conversations on the Planning Commission, some of these projects where we could tag those so they're easier for you to search and find the information you need.
It does take some getting used to. I have noticed that. But it's good.
We'll work
It's
with you,
very good.
Mayor.
I know.
It's easier than what we.
It's new. It's
It
something
is
new
It
that,
is new. And now, council can have a taste for what staff has been going through for the last year. But no, we are, as a team, we are absolutely committed to making this work for the city, work for our residents, and the ease we've already experienced with having our city planners log in, our legal log in, and help us get all this information together. In my opinion, we've already paid for the subscription fee on the time savings that we've had.
really, wow, good,
We don't come cheap.
very good. Any questions for Carrie? Doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Mayor, if I could just add to that, one of the commissions that, it's been used very sporadically in the past, and that's our Civil Service Commission. And really, it's been used for just hiring. And the goal is, we would implement it as part of this new procedure, these new commissions. And at this point, and then seek council input on this, but at this point, we've been talking about having regular quarterly meetings with the Police Civil Service Commission, obviously moving forward with us with a new chief coming on, and to really take that involvement to a new level, have the opportunity for public input at those meetings, and really open that up to a commission, and hearing from the public and trying to utilize that for much more than just a hiring group. I think the commission is very interested and willing to do that and wanting to do it. Just hasn't happened in past, but this will be another opportunity to really publicize that, make it public, have set agendas, minutes, the recording, and make that available for the public to be part of. One quick follow-up with that, I guess, and not necessarily looking for an answer this evening, but maybe also our city attorney can comment on it. And that's moving forward as things are opening up now, and our meetings, to restore our meetings back in-house, planning commission meetings, all of those, and the continued use of Zoom. And once we fully restore everything back to our in-person meetings, we reset the council chambers here in its normal fashion and get back to that. is Zoom a platform or whatever other, media device for doing that? Is that something that the council wants to continue as another media for the public to be able to interact with and be part of our normal functioning meetings? And so looking for your input on that.
My view is that it's here to stay. That Zoom, through COVID and all that, it's here to stay. It's a way for residents to be able to kind of view the meetings. And I do like the input. If somebody feels uncomfortable coming down here to talk in front of the group, they can jump on Zoom and look at it or make their comments on that.
And I think that's the feedback that we've been hearing, that it's another mode, another media to make it available, whether it's just a recording, it's another way of a recording that's out there on their website along with their YouTube and all that, but it's available for resident to attend a meeting that they maybe otherwise wouldn't or couldn't. And I don't know if our city attorney has any.
I want to add, maybe city attorney, when we're under the emergency orders, we're able to have Zoom meetings as a council outside of the chambers. Not having that, are we able to have Zoom meetings? I don't think we're going to, but I think there's some commissions that it was almost kind of nice to have the Zoom meetings, so.
You will be able to continue. The legislature passed a new law in recognition of, the city's use of Zoom meetings. There used to be a requirement about if you're going to appear remotely, where you're at still needs to be open to the public, things of that nature. I forget the exact change, but effective July 1st, cities can continue to meet remotely, but there are some additional limitations in terms of how many times someone can appear remotely. So I think there's the presumption that the 5 of you should be in chambers, but I'm not aware of any changes that say you can't open it up further to allow remote participation from your citizens. That has been the discussion of it's a way to, not everyone has the means to come into City Hall and appear before you. This is an addition, some view it as an additional way to get community engagement and involvement, so that they don't have to, sit here for 3 hours. They may have childcare issues, they may have transportation issues, so on and so forth. So in terms of citizen participation, I'm not aware of any limitations on that.
Also, how do you feel? Councilmember Peterson?
I think it's good. I like that idea that it's transparent and people can, choose that tool. And like you said, Mayor, I think it's here to stay, and it's efficient. And, I'm for it.
Councilmember Thorson?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, if we can increase our access to the public, we should certainly do it, but, we've obviously had our growing pains and learning issues with it. It seemed at some point, when we were back here and integrating Zoom with these live meetings, there seems to be some technical difficulties and glitches and audio issues that maybe not necessarily related to Zoom, but, if we can work on getting that all done, I don't see why we wouldn't.
Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, I think that it does increase that transparency and access and takes in consideration any barriers that both, I think, probably commissioners and community may have. And I would say, even from my experience in our last planning commission, we had a new resident, participate, and he was like, "I'm just here to listen." So I think that, to me, that there has been some use and could be more.
Councilmember Cole?
We're good.
Perfect.
Council members would need to be here. Is there the flexibility that, if there's a council member not here that can attend remotely, and if that's the case, do we have to do any specific posting on that council member having to be in a public setting or those types of things?
No, we're dealing with Councilmember Peterson when she goes on her,
No, I do. We've, you know, pre-pandemic, Candy, I think we did, yeah, but we have done it, we have noticed it. They are putting limitations on how many times you can take advantage of that. But no, you can still do it after July 1st for the 5 of you. I think it's, yeah, once a year, you're fine. So I don't see a problem with that. We could do it pre-pandemic, we'll be able to do it afterwards. There'll be restrictions. You know, we did it more than 3 times during the pandemic, but that, to me, is self-explanatory in terms of why.
but you think you might have to be in a public setting, or you can't
Yes.
be on the beach?
Well, beach might be public. I mean, it's pretty accessible. No, we can review the regulations in terms of how you do a remote meeting after July 1, for sure. But there was a recognition that during the pandemic, people were meeting from their home, which weren't open to the public. Well, we didn't want people going out into the public, so this notion of, fine, you can appear remotely, but you need to be in a place that's open to the public was a bit contradictory to what the executive orders were trying to accomplish. So, going forward, you know, if we don't have to worry as much about the pandemic, I think there's an expectation that the elected officials primarily use council chambers. On the rare occasion you don't, that you're in a place where the public could access it, so.
So again, it goes back to the commissions. I think there's something that is said for being Zoom on a commission that,
Well, they're subject to the open meeting law the same way you are, so the same rules would apply to them in
Okay.
terms of number of times and so on and so forth.
okay, good. All right, city manager, anything?
That's the last item, I believe, unless anybody has any other questions.
Any questions for city manager?
I have a question about the timeline for the police chief, and then also how many candidates we received for the finance director, since it closed last week, correct?
Closed on Friday, I believe, if I remember right, we had 6 applications for finance director, and we had 20 for police chief, and that was narrowed down and interviewed 9.
And then do you have a tentative hiring date for either?
Really hoping that the police chief position would be something that we would be able to finalize a conditional offer yet this week. And the finance director is something that we have to, with that just closed, looking at those today, and then do interviews on a couple candidates there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got reports of council and commissions and committees. Councilmember Cole.
Short, sweet, the Silver Lake Improvement Association meeting will be, next one is June the 7th. It is, the information available on their Facebook page, and I don't remember if we agreed that we were gonna post that information. It is posted, thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Wong.
As you can tell, the Planning Commission has been very busy. And we do have our next meeting here coming Thursday at 6:30 via Zoom.
Councilmember Peterson.
The League of Minnesota Cities will have their virtual annual conference on June 23rd, 25th. I encourage you all, because it's $99 if 5 of us sign up. Keynote speakers, PJ Fleck from the Gophers and Justice Alan Page. And there's a lot of other things going on. Minnesota Woman in City Government, which shows our awards for our appointees and elected officials. And that will be also involved with the annual conference. That's all I have.
Councilmember Thorson.
Nothing.
General business, Councilmember Cole.
I just want to share that I had the opportunity to attend the pinning and oath session of all of our new police officers. It was several of us were there. It was a phenomenal opportunity. The gymnasium at North was I define it as packed. Having been in there for other sporting events, there were more people in attendance there than I've seen at some of the high school sporting events. So it was phenomenal. It was great to give them their recognition. It was great to see family members there, you know, and cheer on our next group. I can't remember the number that we had sworn in, but it was a sizable group.
And these have been holding on for some time. You know, some of them started pre-COVID, and then COVID hit, and so it's really been holding it on. And it came together because they really wanted to make sure that swearing-in took place under our current chief that there was hired under, and then there was a lot of logistics on training, officers in training, and when it could happen, and the size of things, and just also the overall concern sometimes of events like this. But Amber Kay, who is our school resource officer, really did a phenomenal job putting this together and working with the school and having it there, and it worked out very well. Officers were very appreciative of it.
That was a really good event.
It was a great event. The only other thing I have to bring up is we start to establish what the new normal looks like. I mean, it's exciting to see people smile where you just have to look for it in the eyes. It's nice to see the pearly whites. And I'm excited to talk about Fall Roundup and what Fall Roundup is going to look like. Are we going to go back to doing additional activities outside of the parade like we used to? So I look forward to having those conversations in the real near future as well.
General Business, Councilmember Wong.
You know, if I may go back to commission updates.
Yes, you may.
There has been some proposals from TA Shifsky's on outdoor storage. It's different from an expansion of the business, but it's considered outdoor storage, and they are proposing that, which would require some fencing as our code allows. So they are providing different options for fencing. It could be a mixture of landscaping and a 6-foot fence, or has also been proposed as a 16-foot concrete wall. Again, that runs along the Gateway Trail, so there is some discussion and working with Shifsky's on providing a little bit more details to exactly what they're proposing. So that is, I think, on our next agenda, and if of interest, it is a lot to take in, honestly, it really is. So if that's helpful for you all to you know, check in on that meeting, or if you would like more updates from me, I can do that.
Yeah, and along that line, one of the issues that they're looking at, you know, adding at this point is replacing their current silo. They have one silo for their asphalt mix as they produce it, and they're looking to replace that to add 3 silos on the site there. And so, as Councilmember Wong mentioned, there's I think this is potentially the first phase of their intended improvements on the site. You know, not only these silos, but landscape and potential buildings and relocation of things and realignment of the driveway coming out onto 3rd Street that would, right now it's kind of offset to what the new Anchor Drive lines up. So a lot of those issues for discussion and seeing how that can work out. But yeah, I would encourage the same thing.
And one more thing to add to that is that those silos there has been discussion about whether the Arts and Culture Commission would be able to have that there may be some artwork. And that Shifsky's at the time seemed open, but they are open to that discussion.
Cool. General Business, Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, just adding on with the swearing in, it was very awesome to see that North St. Paul will be well served by these new candidates, and it was a great event. Silver Lake Beach is getting busier. It's going to get more busier, and I know we're not going to do lifeguards, but I just hope we have a safe summer out there because I see a lot of stuff going on. It's all good, you know, but I get worried about the inner tubes and the dogs and the fishing, and so hopefully everyone will be careful out there. And I want to wish all the fathers out there a happy Father's Day. Thank you.
Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, just a couple items. Earlier, we had discussion about liquor licenses and how, you know, we've gotten feedback from both the applicants and staff and how utilizing this software, excuse me, that we've implemented, I think it might make sense to review the fee that we charge. I know in the past that's been questioned, and that the explanation was, well, there's, a certain amount of staff time involved with applications and whatnot, and if that's been reduced significantly, I think we should revisit that and what we're charging for that. If there's less time involved staff-wise, probably makes sense to look at that. I understand there's costs involved with the initial purchase of the software and maintaining that, but from my understanding, that's been paid for in full by the CARES Act that we received. And also, this idea about having outdoor areas sectioned off during like city events, like the Fall Roundup or the car show, and allowing alcohol to be consumed outside of these areas that, like the bars and restaurants that do serve that. We've extended them to allow consumption on the right-of-way in the sidewalk area. And in particular, in an event like the car show where it's the road's blocked off, we have police presence, and then there's also staff, volunteer staff. I just think it's something that, in the past it's been, various reasons we were told why you can't do it, but it seems like that's something we can revisit and have discussion on. Last council meeting, we discussed the potential of adopting a city policy about recording all council meetings, workshops, commission meetings, basically any meeting. I'm glad to hear that the Police Civil Service Commission is gonna get on that as well. But we didn't actually have a policy to review and vote on. And I understand that there's some council members that don't agree that some or all meetings need to be done that way. But I think, obviously if there's a majority here that think that's the case, we should actually have a policy that we review and consider and vote on. So at some point in the future, I'd like to see that come back for us for consideration and a vote to make an official policy. And then last item, we talked about the 7th Street development, the townhome development. This is public information, correct, Soren, that lawsuit that stemmed from that?
It is.
Okay. And
That's the judge's order, Scott.
yeah, the judge's orders that we were given back in, I believe it was March, but looked like this was signed off on February 23rd. And the plaintiff had was it 60 days to appeal?
Yes, they've waived their right to that appeal.
Okay, so, just following through, because I think serves a public interest that they understand what had happened. Someone sued the city, they didn't agree that the PUD was issued properly. From my understanding, the judge dismissed it with prejudice. Is that the correct terminology?
That's correct. The judge
So-
in the city's favor.
Yeah. So I would just like to take the copy of that and submit that for the record for the minutes as well. And also follow up to see, do we have a dollar figure on what that costs the city to defend at this time?
I don't have that. The league appointed the league appointed counsel for that. The person was internal at the trust. They didn't appoint another law firm. So my involvement on it was minimal. But the city was charged.
And we could follow up and get that cost to enter into that, as we've had, some of these other suits where the league covers us, but we still receive a bill for it. So we can get you the exact dollar amount if we've received it at this point.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to, if
Yeah.
people have qualms about the city and they feel it's not addressed, that's certainly their right to take that action, but I also think it's appropriate to follow up and make it known publicly that, in this case, it was essentially a frivolous lawsuit, and that costs the taxpayers, a significant amount of money, and I think it's just appropriate that we state that for the record so everyone understands.
We'll look that up and see if I can add that to this record at this time, so it's all tied together.
That's all I have.
I got a couple of condolences. B.J. Hack passed away, long member of the community for many years, St. Pete's, and moved out to Woodbury. Her and, trying to think of her husband's name. He passed away a couple of years, Louis passed away a couple of years ago, but extend our condolences out to the family. And then Roger Ball, I just noticed, passed away. I think he was a resident of Maplewood, but a very, Oakdale. What's that?
Former commander.
Yep. Worked at the Legion for a long time, and he worked on the Veterans Park in Oakdale. That's how I got to know Roger. Memorial Day event that happened down at the Veterans Park went over well. It was kind of funny, it was advertised, everything was going to happen at 12:30, but the honor guard and the TAPS, they got done early at the other cemeteries, and they made it down there around 12:05, and you got a lot of people, it's warm out and in the sun, and they're all in uniform, and so they did it right away, and a few people missed. They showed up around 12:30 and missed the event, and I had one person that was not very happy with it, but these are volunteers, and first year that they've done it down there, so, and they plan on doing it again next year, and make it an annual event. That's all I have. So, anything else? Not, we're going to go into closed session. A motion to go into closed session as permitted by section 13D.05 subdivision 3A to evaluate the performance of the city manager. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson. Second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go into closed session.